According to the Texas Cancer Registry, 39,018 Texans died of cancer in 2015. On top of cancer, there are other terminal illnesses or conditions such as AIDS, dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and many others that contribute to thousands of Texans' deaths every year. Unfortunately, individuals with these terminal conditions had to endure suffering toward the end of their lives. Watching loved ones suffer and having to endure suffering has called many to push for the legalization of physician-assisted suicide in the state of Texas. Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and California have all adopted physician-assisted suicide. The way physician-assisted suicide is performed in the United States is through a prescription of a lethal dose of medication that the patient has to ingest themselves. According to the Oregon Public Health Division, only 60% of those actually prescribed the medication in 2015 ended up taking it. This form of physician-assisted suicide puts more power in the hands of the patient, but still has lasting negative effects on the medical community. So my question to you is, should Texas be next to legalize? Although it does sound nice to be able to end someone's suffering, it is a complex issue that has lasting negative effects, more problems than any solutions it could potentially offer. It is also a slippery slope that could lead to disastrous consequences. Now let's discuss in depth some of the problems associated with assisted suicide, why these are problems, and what we could do alternatively. So, physician-assisted suicide makes doctors responsible for the patient's death and changes the doctor's role. Doctors take a Hippocratic oath promising to do no harm to their patients, and performing physician-assisted suicide goes against this. The doctor's role should be a healer, and aid in dying changes the role to accomplice and sometimes even encourager of suicide. It is a very slippery slope with no definite right or wrong. At the end of the day, it's up to the physician's discretion what they consider unbearable suffering. A treatable but technically incurable mental illness could potentially be considered grounds for assisted suicide, depending on the physician's own opinion of suffering. Many also choose to opt for assisted suicide for very selfless reasons. They don't want to be a burden on family members, either physically or financially. And this can be seen by the fact that only 60% of those prescribed the medication in 2015 actually took it. So they may have had second thoughts or conflicting feelings about actually going through with it. Now let's take a look at the root of the problem. So patients are suffering, and family and doctors and all involved want to end their suffering. It's never easy to watch a loved one suffer, but should it be the responsibility of someone else to assist them in taking their own life? Patients can also sometimes be afraid of the final days and choose to opt for assisted suicide out of fear. End-of-life care can be expensive and taxing on patients and their families. And this stressful, expensive care can be a reason that they are pushed towards assisted suicide. Aid in dying could quickly turn from a way to end someone's suffering to a way to prematurely end the lives of the terminally ill in order to save money. When a person is suffering, there are many options to turn to before resorting to termination of life. Counseling can be offered to the patient or the patient's family. Financial help and assistance can be given to the patient's family. To relieve suffering, pain medication can be given in high doses, as side effects such as liver damage are not a concern when the patient has very limited time to live. What you should take away from this today is that legalizing assisted suicide in Texas would bring many challenges. The morality of this issue is a debate. But that aside, it is a slippery slope that could quickly lead to disastrous consequences and open the door for corruption and malpractice. Thousands of Texans suffer every year from terminal illnesses, but there are other options to relieve the suffering that won't bring the challenges and problems that legalizing assisted suicide would. Thank you.